Alright guys, welcome back to another review, and this time we're going to be covering the 2011 prequel to John Carpenter's classic, which is also known as The Thing. I'm making this very short, I'm making this very sweet. This prequel should not have been made. It adds nothing to the table. It is just a cheap imitation of the first movie. It's pretty much copying and pasting all the moments from the first movie into this movie and not having its own identity. To make a comparison, I'll look at Halloween 3, which is a movie that tries to stand on its own 2 feet. It has flaws, but at least it's trying to stand on its own 2 feet and trying to be different from the previous 2 Halloween movies at that time. The Thing, prequel, does the exact opposite of Halloween 3, which tries to be different. This one tries to recreate the same thing from the first movie, but it doesn't understand the first movie. And I'll explain why it doesn't understand the first movie. The first movie had interesting and compelling characters that played off one another. You had these characters who, even though you didn't know their backstories, you knew what you needed to know. You know who R.J. McCready is. He's like this gruff leader. He's the gruff leader. You know who Charles is. He's the hothead. You know who Windows is. He's the communications guy. But he's also the guy that's quick to be jumpy for almost any situation. You have the character of Clark, who is just shut off from everyone at the camp, and he's pretty much just, his only friends are the dogs, and he's more worried about these dogs than he is about everyone else. And he's easily to suspect. And you have Wilford Brimley's character, who is pretty much the guy that knows what's going on, and you have the character of the Doc. Right, you have these interesting, compelling characters played by world-class actors that pretty much just develop this chemistry with one another. And to me, it felt natural and it felt real. And when they were scared, you would get scared. And when they're getting paranoid, you're getting paranoid. The Thing prequel has none of that. You have solid actors doing the best they can do with a very unrealized script. And it's a damn shame, because a lot of these actors I've actually seen in other movies, and I've liked them in other movies. I've liked Joel Edgerton in other movies. I've liked Mary Elizabeth Winstead in other movies. I like the actor Adewale. I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry, but I've seen him in movies I liked him in. He played Killer Croc. He had a nice little role in the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra movie. He's a good action star type of actor. But those 3 actors are very criminally underutilized in this movie because they got nothing to work with. Their characters are just bland as bricks, and Edgerton and Adewale don't get a whole lot of screen time to develop a friendship that those characters have. The movie just says they're friends, but I don't see the chemistry developing between the 2. I mean, I'll give the prequel credit. You know, it does have real Norwegian actors in this movie, which is good. It gives it a sense of credibility, since this movie tells the story of the ill-fated Norwegian fan base that McCready's team finds in the original film. So I give the movie credit for doing that. And of course, the majority of the Norwegian actors are really, really solid in this movie. But again, their characters are non-existent. They're uninteresting, and they're not compelling enough to hook you in. And another big flaw for this movie is that the creature effects, they're just totally CG, which is a damn shame. Because if you watch the prequel, if you watch the making of this movie, the prequel, they actually created these really cool looking, practical animatronic effects. But they painted them over with the digital paintbrush. If you had a more confident and talented director behind the chair, he would have made those practical effects look amazing on screen. If you had a good cinematographer, he would have lit those shots to make them look as beautiful as he could possibly make them. Instead, we get these journeyman filmmakers. Nothing bad about journeyman filmmakers. But the problem with some journeyman filmmakers is that they're just that. They're journeymen. They have experiences in little things. They don't have their whole work is mostly just niche films. Isn't really they're not really a lot of them are not really contained to one genre. But at the same time, you're also getting people that are not really experienced in making Americanized movies. So they're going to go the cheap route. And that's a big flaw, because you're pretty much making a lazy movie, in my opinion. And it's a damn shame, because John Carpenter and his team put time and effort to creating a memorable movie. These guys, they put time and effort into creating a forgettable movie. and another thing about the Thing prequel is that it plays out not only as a cheap imitation of the first, but it tries way too hard to pretty much set up the whole first movie. You get the ice coffin that the creature pops out of. You get the creature with the two heads that got merged and burned together. You get the guy by the CB radio who was just dead on a chair. And you get the whole base being blown up. And you get this guy in the chopper trying to shoot the dog. It pretty much, the whole movie is just set up for the first, without telling its own self-contained story. And again, I think a reviewer said it best. The 2011 Thing movie is just a cheap imitation of John Carpenter's original classic. Pretty much, the creature in the movie, how that is a cheap imitation whenever it takes over someone, whenever it copies someone else. It's no different than real life, only in movie form. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Thing prequel. At the end of the day, I'm going to give the movie, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. I'll be generous. I'll give it a 4 out of 10 because, as I said, it's not a horrible movie. It's not a good movie, but it is watchable. All right? It does, when you watch it, it ain't going to piss you off. You're just going to watch it and you're going to be like, all right, you could have fixed that. You could have done this. These characters could have had more moments like that. You could have nitpicked the little ways this movie could have been so much better than it really was. But at the end of the day, again, it's just a cheap imitation. And I think 4 out of 10 might be a little too generous, but I don't hate this movie. I'm just very disappointed by it. And 4 out of 10 perfectly encapsulates the disappointment. Anyway, I'm Major Legend. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.